Okay, time now for our press review, and I'm joined in studio by Oliver Farry. Hi, Oliver.
Hello.
Tell me, we're looking at the French papers in this hour and the National Front getting a lot of coverage.
That's right. Le Figaro commissioned a poll from the marketing group IFOP, which puts the National Front on top with 30% of voting intentions ahead of next month's elections to elect councillors to run France's 101 administrative departments. They take place on the 22nd and 29th of March. Now, 30%, that's ahead of the UMP with 28% and well ahead of the ruling Socialists on 20%. Marine Le Pen's party takes pole position. Le Figaro's editorial speaks of a rising tide. Election after election, they say, opinion poll after opinion poll, the leaders of the UMP and the Socialists discover a troubling reality against which they appear to be powerless. Yes, the National Front is France's largest party, or biggest number one party. The Socialists, riven by internal divisions, face a mission impossible overtaken by the demands of a new era, and they see some of their historical supporters actually taking refuge in the far right. Now, things are easier, they say, for the UMP, the right-leaning Daily says, but they just must rid themselves of 30 years of complexes and stop defending its values with, quote, a trembling voice. If the right does not dare tackle issues such as public spending, national education and France's creaking social model, the National Front will take care of it, should we make a gift of it for them. Inside columnist François-Xavier Beaumont elaborates on the problem facing the Socialists. He says that they could actually top the poll if they were to ally with the Greens and the Left Front, but that's where the problem lies, because the Left doesn't really like the government right now, as was seen with dissenting MPs from the Socialist Party in the debate on the Macron law last week. Now, the piece quotes the Socialists' Director of Elections, who says that every time we give the impression there's a mess at the top of the party, voters turn away from us. According to Le Figaro, a setback in these elections could really spell the beginning of the end for Prime Minister Manuel Valls.
Okay, one to be seen. We have talked about that rise of the National Front for quite some time now. Another thing that you've spotted in the French papers, which interestingly, it's an international news story that isn't getting as much coverage in the international press, it's Ukraine.
Yes, that's right. 1 year on from the overthrow of President Viktor Yanukovych, there's not much to celebrate. Liberation's headline reads, 1 year on Maidan's impossible justice. The new authorities in Kiev stand accused of stifling investigations into human rights violations during the very process that helped them come to power. At least 95 civilians were believed to have died in the protests, along with 17 policemen. Now, investigations are dragging along, not helped by the fact that many police who were in operation at the time were masked, and protesters have removed an awful lot of evidence, such as firearm cartridges, to keep as souvenirs, which is rather counterproductive. Few people have faith in getting any justice, as the government is reluctant to punish any police, as they will probably need them themselves to protect any new Maidan. In Le Figaro, reporter Régis Jantet reports from Debaltseve, which fell to pro-Russian separatists last week. He speaks of, quote, zombies emerging from the ruins. People who have been holed up in cellars for the past month converged on the City Hall desperately seeking humanitarian aid. One woman said that she hoped to get some bread and just simply warm up in the sunlight. She hadn't seen any daylight in over a month. Most of the town's 25,000 inhabitants did actually flee the violence, but others, for some reason or other, actually did stay. They've caught viruses in many cases on account of being holed up with pets and other domestic animals. One old lady says, we were forgotten, we could have died and nobody would have cared. Only Putin thinks about us. Meanwhile, the Catholic daily La Croix has a report from eastern Ukraine about the legions of volunteers helping the war effort, including a 40-something couple named Victoria and Alexander Belenko. They're members of the Aidar Battalion, which is a rather controversial group that was previously a self-defense unit in the Maidan protests. It's now involved in the fight on the front line. The couple help with material repairs, they cook food and they treat the wounded. Alexei Haran, a political scientist at Kiev University, also points out that the majority of the pro-Kiev volunteers in the east are actually Russian-speaking, which goes against what one might expect.
Absolutely, yeah. Some interesting reports there coming out about Ukraine. Let's move back to France again for a minute. A lot of criticism for the French banks on food speculation. Tell us more about that.
That's right. La Croix's editorial denounces the price of hunger. It comes as Oxfam, who had previously announced this news 2 years ago. They've had a new report on speculation on food commodities. French banks, the report says, could do better. though they no longer have the right to officially speculate on food markets after a banking law that was passed in 2013. They can still get around it because the law actually has not been implemented yet. Now, the role financial institutions play in the food markets is now actually greater than that of producers and businesses, and this is pushing prices up to unsustainable levels. Now, this is actually having another effect, which is affecting French agriculture, according to Le Croix. It's tempting French livestock farmers to diversify into tillage, or which is actually production of crops. Cereal prices are quite high, so it's obviously quite attractive. But this is causing environmental damage to land and is also having an effect of concentrating dairy farming in a limited number of regions and actually separating it from tillage, when the two actually do go on hand in hand, because you obviously byproducts of cows are used for fertilizer, and then vice versa, you actually use grain to feed the livestock themselves, and it's not a very efficient way of going about agriculture.
Okay, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of stories about agriculture now, as Paris plays host to that agricultural fair, one of the largest in the world, that opened at the weekend here in the capital. Well, Oliver Farry, thanks for that French Prince review. We'll see you later on for the international one.